Well, let me start first by congratulating Iramna Obin on winning the election. It's not easy going through an election, especially when the election process draws out the way hers has. You know, and like my colleague said, election, if you haven't been through it, it's not easy. I went through parliamentary primaries in Cape Coast North. I know what I went through. You know, even when I had my own, of all the candidates at the time, I had the biggest billboards. My opponents, their billboards were standing there, smaller billboards. And my giant billboards were being broken. And after thorough investigations, I found out who the culprits were. It wasn't NDC. So, you know, it takes a lot out of you, you know. Apart from your resources, your spirit, your soul, it's not easy. So I congratulate her for having gone through what she's gone through successfully. And also, Zita made reference to my good brother, Ablekuma. I'm in black this morning because I'm attending his 1 week. He was a schoolmate, same house, Elliot House, but of course he was my senior. So back to our discussion. The election violence that we're all talking about, it's most unfortunate that after all the problems we've had over the 7 months and eventually we've come to the election, on a morning like this, we should have been talking about what the prospects are, you know, what the Okaikwe North people should be looking forward to, what the candidates' plans are, how we can interrogate those plans, etc. That should have been the conversation. But there were 19, the election was held in 19 polling stations. One polling station recorded an incident, which has become the topical incident about the whole election. And there was also the side incident of the policeman assaulting a journalist. Now, this incident that we're talking about, it happened within a window of about 30 minutes. 30 minutes, and that was it. At the end of that 30 minutes, the whole incident was over. Everything that has happened after that is just commentary. So you isolate the issue and realize that it wasn't, it was bad, but you know, what happened? Did somebody go and cause violence? Did somebody go and attack somebody? This thing took its rise when a former minister, a member of the opposition party, former member of parliament, visited a particular police station the second time that morning. And it appears her presence just had an effect on some people, and there was some reaction. In her effort to defend herself or whatever, she applied pepper spray. And this is what has culminated in this whole thing. Yes, I condemn any form of violence by anybody, anywhere, whether it's in elections, a road traffic situation, whatever, domestic or whatever way. I wholeheartedly and vehemently condemn violence. So it's unfortunate that this incident occurred. Now, I want to go back to how it started. Before it came about, there were some leaders of the parties who had begun to make threats and issue virtual incitements, you know, about this election, which was also very bad. The day before the election, had called upon the Inspector General of Police that anybody making any such threat should be invited by the police, you know, and dealt with. Because these are the precursors that create the environment that causes violence. And at the end of the day, I always insist that it boils down to leadership. If the leaders show proper leadership, there'll be no violence. I can't remember what year it was, but there was a by-election somewhere in, I think the Brong-Ahafo region. I can't remember too clearly. At the time, Peter McMahon was chairman of MPP, and the late Kwabena J was chairman of NDC. There was a lot of fear and worry that that by-election was going to be challenging, and there was the prospect of some violence. What happened? The day before, in that constituency, Peter McMahon and his friend, Kwabena J, walked hand in hand down the main street to show the people that there's no problem. For some of the party supporters on both sides, they were shocked. They couldn't believe that Peter McMahon and Kwabena J could be friends. But they demonstrated to everybody that we are friends. So if we are friends, who are you to go and fight? That in itself, that action, brought down the political temperature in that constituency for that by-election. And the by-election went without a problem. So we have the capacity to have elections without problems. We've had several by-elections without problems. But we always make reference to those ones that had difficulties. And if you look into all those difficult situations, you can point a finger at individuals who played a key role in causing those troubles. But in the past, those individuals go away virtually unpunished. They sometimes they even benefit from political cover and defense. So they go around feeling, it's wrong. We must change the narrative. We must all condemn before it starts. The moment somebody starts talking and inciting, we deal with that person, irrespective of the political party they come from, whether they come from our own party or from another party. Once an individual does that, because when the violence comes, the violence doesn't look at political party colors. It visits everybody. Stray bullets don't look for they just meet anybody along the way. So these are issues that are very, very, for me, very, very dear. And we must, collectively look at dealing with this situation. Like some of the recommendations Zita has just said. Electoral officers who have been caught to be complicit in those incidents that raise political tension. A whole electoral officer, and you are seeing, and we've seen incidents of these in the past. We've seen incidents, and these people are never punished. Nothing happens to them. It must change. That has to stop. If an electoral officer is publicly disgraced, nobody offering themselves to be as a volunteer to work in any election process would even dream of doing something like that. So it's very important that we do these things. Now, in this same incident that we're talking about, like I'm saying, there were 18 other polling stations which went about peacefully. There was no problem. But it also brought about certain challenges that also came about. For example, when mention was made of the polling stations that the elections were going to be conducted, in some cases not enough detail was given. So for example, they make reference to a particular school, polling station in Methodist school. But what people didn't realize is that Methodist school has 3 or 4 polling stations, and it's only one particular one that the election is being conducted. So people get up, go to the polling station expecting to vote, only to be told that it is not their particular polling station where the voting is going to be conducted. And the communication doesn't go right. That person goes out, a media house meets them, they grant an interview, and I went there and the electoral officer sacked me, they don't want me to vote because they know I'm NDC or they know I'm MPP, and that begins to cause political tension. Ignorance, ill information. And these are some of the things that cause problems. So it is important that the proper information is given out. People are well informed. The Electoral Commission must concentrate and do its job. I'll talk about the Electoral Commission later. But, you know, these are some of the things that happen that cause these problems. And also, you know, I've in the aftermath of this incident, I've had a lot of comments, some of which I find most unfortunate, like some I've heard this morning on this program. You know, the Honorable Hawa Kumson is my friend. She's a nice lady. You know, yes, her name has been associated with some unfortunate incidents in the past. But that doesn't necessarily mean that if somebody were to appear somewhere and they've been involved in some, or their names have been involved in some issues in the past, that alone should be grounds for somebody to want to attack them or whatever. I think that is most unfair and it's wrong. You know, we are talking about this election that we had yesterday. But look at the constant reference people are making to Ayawa, So West, Wogon, and all that. Nobody is making reference to those by-elections that we held that went peacefully. As if to say all by-elections are by-elections of problems and problems. Everybody's talking about Akwetia having. If the police do their homework, the Electoral Commission do their homework, the political parties do their homework, Akwetia should happen without any incident. There should be absolutely no problem at all. But if we all begin to psych ourselves to expect violence, it will happen. And if leaders behave irresponsibly, violence will occur. So the right things have to be done to ensure that these things don't happen. You know? And back to this same incident. People are talking about what has happened, but there are other facts of the matter that do not seem to be coming up. Before then, I'm talking about the pepper spray. Yes, pepper spray is often handled, a lot of women carry it in their handbags as a form of protection. Especially people who work late at night, nurses and people like that. Because their environments could be dangerous, they could be attacked, so they quickly pop out a pepper spray as a form of defense. So I don't think we should describe pepper spray as, I'm not justifying its use. I'm not justifying anything. I'm just making reference to the item. You know, I know, I myself, during my campaign in Cape Coast, I found that there were some nurses whose flats in Interberton were isolated. And when they closed late, because the street lights were not working, there were times when some of them had been attacked. And I made efforts to get them pepper spray to defend themselves. If they were attacked, people tried to snatch their phones. So I found it very difficult when I had the deputy ranking member of the NDC on another platform describing how somebody who had gone with carrying a weapon of pepper spray. No, pepper spray is not a weapon. It was a.
You're supposed to register it.
Well,
you cannot just.
It can be an offensive weapon.
Well,
and when you carry it, the intent may be that you may encounter trouble.
I'm not going into the facts of the matter. I'm just stating.
I'm sure that the intent is that you may encounter some problem. So in carrying it, you might have intended that there will be some problem for which you use it.
Yes. So that was
right. If you spray pepper spray on me, I'll jump.
Of course, if you haven't attacked the person, which you won't attack a person too. Yeah. So anyway, so that's the point. Then also in that incident, when this unfortunate incident happened, one issue that hasn't been stated is that the people who actually rushed this former member of parliament, former minister of state to the hospital were leaders of the NDC, her friends. They came to her rescue and took her to the hospital. You see, so let us put these things in context. It wasn't purely NDC versus MPP, no. Some individuals attacked an individual, other individuals came to her aid. It was not a political matter, you know. And I want to commend those gentlemen, NDC national officers, who came to her rescue, you see, to assist her in the situation. The situation was unfortunate. It should never have happened in the first place. Maybe she should have known a little better and not gone back there the second time. You see, it may have averted the situation and we would not have been talking about this. But it did happen, and this was the consequence. So I just hope that all the lessons would have been learned from this incident. Yes, there's a talk that the police probably should have been armed. I still have the view that the police should not. Maybe the police should organize themselves better, and their responses to various situations should be more apt and more rapid, you know. So I think that that is what should happen in that kind of situation. The election itself, all told, went well. I heard the Minister for Interior and the Minister for Defense. I heard the way they spoke when they got to the scene not too long after it had happened. My fear and worry was that the way they would speak might probably pour more petrol into the fire. But rather, they disarmed the situation. They managed it, and I was so happy with their handling of it, particularly the Minister for Defense, Omani Bwama. And also before then, too, was Eduji Tamaklo. Yeah, Eduji. Yeah. You know, he spoke to the media, and the way he handled it, excellent, helped diffuse the situation. Whereas the same incident, I was hearing it on another network, and the way the commentator was speaking, you would think that there was mayhem coming on. So the media too, we have to be very critical of the media, because the media can also fuel some of these things in a very bad way, very, very, very bad way. That was what it was. That was what it was. You know? So I think there are lessons to be learned. And our aim is that each election should be far better than the previous. Whether it's by National Assembly or whatever election that we hold, should be better than the previous. Because after all, as human beings, we want to see progress in our lives. Everything we want to do, we want to see what we are doing today, tomorrow we want to see it better. So as for that one, that's what we expect. The Electoral Commission has demonstrated beyond all reasonable doubt their total incompetence. Total incompetence. The chairperson was summoned to Parliament about a week or so, or just over a week or so ago, and the responses that were given and what happened consequently, totally out of gear. And when you listen, you realize that it was the political parties themselves and their representatives who, when they met with the Electoral Commission and they examined all the facts, decided and agreed among themselves that of the 37 polling stations that were in contention, 18, the two sides had agreed, okay, we can let these ones pass. But the 19 there, we are going to have a rerun. This is something that could have been done months ago. We didn't have to wait till this time. So that demonstrates to me the total incompetence of the EC. Total incompetence. So there should be no question about anybody wanting to remove them. I think they themselves should advise themselves. They should advise themselves and just say, well, I was given a job, I tried to do my best, but I have fallen below my own expectations, so I'm going. This is the honorable thing to do. And I will call upon them to resign. If they value Ghana's democracy, they should resign. Because they have demonstrated, and I hope that when they resign, as we are now doing constitutional review, when we are choosing what do you call them? The
commissioners.
Commissioners of the Electoral Commission, we have some institutional representation as well. They shouldn't just be people who are just appointed by the government. We should have institutional representation. The traditional National House of Chiefs can have a representative there. We can have certain professional bodies, you know, the statisticians, they should have a representation there. You know, the Bar Association, they can have a representation there. Engineers, they should have a representation. You know, and then the government can appoint the three, the top and the deputies. Then we know that we have a proper independent electoral commission. But the way they have, and you see, sometimes when somebody does a bad job, they appreciate the one you thought had done a bad job before. We now see that Afarijan and even Charlotte Osei, who was sacked, they did a far better job than these people have done. Far better. So I will call upon them that if they value their own reputations, they should do the honorable thing by resigning, so that a proper look is taken of not just the commissioners or the board of the Electoral Commission, but the whole structure, with proper penalties put in place for people along the way, how they are recruited, how they are accountable, So at the end of the day, when the Electoral Commission speaks, nobody will question. Everybody is satisfied that they've done a good job. There will be no chaos. Nobody will be worried. Because you know that at the end of the day, it is just a vote that is going to be counted. And when the vote is counted, at the end of the day, when the votes are counted at the polling station, everybody is there. The party representatives have the copies of the results. So what is the big deal about this? What is all the noise about it? Is there something that we cannot do? Is there something we have not done so many times before? So why should there be a problem this time around? There must be the incompetence of the people there. So I think that in terms of the Electoral Commission, this is how we should handle it. As for the New Patriotic Party and how they handled it, sometimes I feel sad talking about the New Patriotic Party, because a party that I actually gave my heart out for behaving like this. This is not the New Patriotic Party. No. The party was a party. The rules are the rules. Everybody obeys the rules. People can have their disagreements, and it is part of the process. It's a democracy. I have my view, you have your view. By the end of the day, the final result is what we all go by. But it has changed. Now there's total chaos. And the fact of the matter, the truth of the matter that the party must recognize is that, look, there was a time when NDC was seen as a party of riff-raff and pure party. They like violence. They are a party that, but hey, Masa, everything is leadership. And under the leadership of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, he's making NDC look very attractive. He has turned the table. We grew up in a generation where we had our own prejudices, and because of our own experiences and what we went through, how we felt about the NDC. But the next generation after us, who didn't go through what we went through, who are looking at things objectively, they don't care about anything else. They are looking at things as they are. And this is what NPP should be thinking about. Building the party, building the credibility of the party. I heard my friend Patrick Buama giving advice about what the party should do. And I'll add that a poison chalice was introduced into the party, and that is what has killed the party. A poison chalice. In 2007, our presidential aspirants had a massive campaign. National, all of them ran national campaign. Vigorous and vibrant campaign. At the end of the day, the party came together, everybody was fine. Like previous challenges in the past. But suddenly what happened? Now, if you are supporting this man or you are supporting that man, then therefore you are now an enemy. How can you be an enemy? How can you be an enemy? Huh? Then when something is wrong and you say it is wrong, they say, then you are Yanum. Sir. When the thing that is wrong, we can all see is wrong. And so I shouldn't say it? No. This is not the party. So I just hope that for the good of the party, they seriously re-examine these issues and deal with it properly. Otherwise, the way it is going, in the last few years, all the rules have been always twisted and bent to suit one individual. Now, total chaos. It's like there's no leader. How? Anyway.
That's why I want to choose a leader.
Well,